Hey guys, Chris Fix here, back with Project Police Interceptor. This is the final episode, I repeat, the final episode of Project Police Interceptor. If you haven't watched the series, I'll link the episodes in the description for you. This is a 2005 Ford Crown Victoria P71, which is the police package. In the first episode, the officer and I just purchased the car for real cheap, so it needed some work and I fixed it up. In the second episode, I wired the siren. In the third episode, I mounted all the emergency lights. In the fourth episode, I made a custom center console that has all the switches. And in this episode, the final episode of Project Police Interceptor, the culmination of all our work, I'm going to show you how to wire up all this spaghetti into our center console so it's nice and neat. And the best part is, after everything's all wired up, at the end of this episode, we're going to take this car for a ride with the officer and we're going to test out all of the lights. But before we go wire everything up, you guys came up with some awesome ideas that I want to put in place for this car. The first idea you guys came up with is for the rear light bar. The rear light bar looks awesome, but many of you suggested it looks unfinished because the wire is just laying across the panel. So I'm going to drill a small hole right next to the light bar, and I'm going to run our wire through the hole and under the panel. And look at that. This looks way better with the wire hidden, so great suggestion. Now the second suggestion you guys had was finishing the inside of the center console. The inside of the console is bare wood, so I bought some material to cover the inside, but then I came up with an interesting idea. What if I spray the inside with rubber? Now, I've never tried this before, but we shall see if it works. Since it's a cop car, it's supposed to be rugged, easy to clean, and durable, and this seems fitting. And that looks pretty good, so let's let it dry. Back in the car after it's completely dry, let's check this out. And look at that, that's actually not bad. Sure, it's not exactly pretty, but it covers the wood, the coating's stain resistant, and it's also a sound deadener, which will keep the stuff in here nice and quiet. So let's move on to another fan suggestion. The next suggestion you guys had is for the spotlight, which is oxidized and hazy. So let's polish the lens. The process is simple. Spray down the lens with soapy water, sand it with 1500 grit, spray it down some more, move up to 3000 grit, spray it some more, move to 5000 grit, spray and clean the lens off. And now we're gonna finish off with some scratch remover polish, buff it in, and this thing is crystal clear. Now look at that. What a difference. Here's the before, and here's the after. Now we have one more suggestion from you guys that we're gonna take care of. And it's the lights underneath the front bumper. Well, you guys thought they would get smashed up, but they didn't. Instead, they're cheap eBay lights, they rusted out, so these things gotta go. Alright, now with those lights removed, you know I always say my subscribers are the best subscribers on YouTube, and here is more proof of that. How cool is this? Subscriber Sean from Oklahoma sent me 4 of his red and blue police lights because he's a volunteer firefighter and they just changed the laws in his area. And he said instead of having his lights get all dusty, he was going to send them over to help with Project Police Interceptor. And these lights are the real deal. These are some good lights. Thanks a lot, Sean. These lights will be put to good use and might even help save lives. So let's go get Sean's lights installed in Project Police Interceptor. And I think these two would look good right here. So mark the middle, drill a pilot hole, and then drill a hole big enough for the wires. Good. Now let's feed the wires through and center the light to drill the bolt holes. That's 1 and 2. And I almost forgot the rubber gasket on the back of the light. And now tighten up the screws on both sides and we can put the cover on the light. Awesome. Now just repeat the process on the other side. Drill your holes for the light, send the wires through, and tighten down the screws. Alright, now that looks good. So I'm not going to show you every single thing I'm wiring, it's just going to take too long. You know, positive goes to positive, negative goes to ground. I just want to give you a quick overview. So everything is soldered and heat shrinked, and everything is wrapped in this plastic so that there's no chance of it chafing. So that's our ground, and then our power goes all the way here because it's going to go inside the car. Now, you should, anytime you're wiring, you should remove the negative battery terminal. I'm going to do that in a second. I just want to show you the lights in action. So that should be on, and they work and look awesome. Now that we know they work, let's remove the negative cable here so we don't cause any electrical problems. One of the first things you need to do before you start any wiring is remove the negative terminal. Removing the negative terminal prevents anything from getting grounded. So you can't get any sparks, you can't short anything out, and it opens the circuit of the electrical system for the whole car. And with that disconnected, let's install the lights on the back of the car. So let's see where we're gonna mount these lights in the rear of the Cruiser. Originally, I wanted to put the lights here, but we don't have any sideways facing lights, so how about mounting them right here? That way the side of the car has some lights just in case the Cruiser is sideways at the scene of an accident or something. So I think mounting them in line with the brake light will look good, but more importantly, function well. Now, so I could get my placement of the light as even as possible on both sides, I'm gonna use a piece of tape to get a nice straight line. Now the plan is to wire the light right here, and then if we look into the trunk, excuse the mess, look at the amazing access we have in the trunk. Right here is where the light is, and this is our power cable, which is running all the way to the switches inside the car. And then right here we could easily ground the lights. Now let's get the lights mounted. Drill a hole for the wires and screws, run the wires, and then tighten down the screws to hold the light in place. Add the bezel to the lights, and look at that. So now we can take the wires from our lights and run them all the way to the front. I'll be tucking it in underneath here all the way around, and it'll meet up with the wires on the other side right here. So I soldered the wires together. We have the ground, which is going right here, and then we have our power wire, which is running all the way to the front. And then you can easily hide everything. It looks factory fresh, you can't even tell it's there. And then the wires come up to the front right through here, continue up, and then there we go. We got our black light bar wire, and then we have the two backlights that Sean gave us right there, all coming out where all our wires are, and I mean all our wires. Actually, we can't forget about the wires from the front light bar and lights that Sean gave us. Now we have all the wires from all the accessories, all the lights, the siren, the dash cam, everything is right here. Now we need to install it into our center console. All the wires are going to be fed from the bottom through those 3 holes right there. And the good thing about a cop car is all these power wires are here from the previous center console that was used by the police. Now, since I don't want to bore you and have you watch every single wire I'm soldering, I'm going to show you how to solder these 2 wires together, and this process will be applied to every single joint and every single wire I put in Project Police Interceptor. So let's begin. Start by stripping each wire so you have enough wire to work with on each side. These automatic strippers make big jobs like this fast and easy, and make sure you get one of these helping hands to hold your wires as well. Now grab your soldering paste and rub a light coat into the wires. The paste protects the joint from oxidation as you solder, so make sure you use it. Now push the wires together and twist them so they're intertwined. Next, get your soldering gun, heat it up, and add some solder to the tip. Hold the tip under the wire and feed the solder from the top, so when the wire gets hot enough, it'll melt through the wire, like so. And don't add globs of solder, only use enough to cover both strands. Then add some silicone paste or dielectric grease to the joint to prevent corrosion, and slide a heat shrink over the joint and heat it up with a heat gun. And that right there is the perfect joint. I could pull on this real hard, and that is not coming apart. So that's how you do it. And we have a nice, waterproof, strong, conductive joint. And that's how I'll solder every single wire in the car. Now back at the car, check this out. Boom! All kidding aside, this did take me a couple hours to wire up. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect, because if these lights are getting used, that means that there's an emergency, and if there's an emergency, the lights have to work. Now, when working on cars in general, sometimes you find some pretty cool things. This was a Florida car, so I'm guessing this is a lizard. And check out those teeth. This is pretty cool. Alright, now back to business. Let me show you how to wire this up. Now, one of the most important things with wiring is staying organized. You could run a million wires, but if you don't know where they go to, then putting them together onto the switch panel is going to be impossible. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, is stay organized. Now, one way I like to stay organized is with one of these label printers. So even with all these wires here, you could easily find the ground, and then you could grab your ground wire and just simply make a connection. And here are the wires I want to connect for the accessories that only power on when the key's on. So now we could wire the rest of this board up. So we'll connect the front light bar. Next we'll connect the voltmeter, our USB charging port, and our 12-volt socket. We'll grab the auxiliary power and voltmeter wires, and you can see it's clearly labeled positive and negative, so we'll connect all of the positives. And then we can connect our grounds to each accessory. And now we can wire the momentary switch, and this is going to change the flash pattern for the police lights. And now we have our switches. The power in, which is coming from our 12-volt battery, is the top left. The power out, which is going to our accessory, is the bottom left. The top right, we're not touching. That's to keep the light on the switch on all the time. We only want it on when you turn the accessory on. So we're going to attach the ground to the bottom right here, which will allow the switch to light up when the accessory is on. So we're going to apply our diagram here, right to our switch there. The first thing, bottom right, ground all of these so the switch light turns on. So with all the grounds in, we have two simple wire sets. One is power all the time. So these wires are our power wires. They go on the top left. The other set, the red's the front lights, the pink is the rear lights, and that's our dash camera. So we're going to be using 3 switches. Beautiful. Now we have one more thing to connect, and that is our siren, which plugs right in. Alright, now we could connect the battery, and I'm not going to tighten this down yet. I'm just going to put it just like this so that we can test everything and make sure it works before we screw this panel in. And before you connect your negative terminal, I always like to sand down the terminal to get a really good connection. And I also like sanding down the actual connector so that there's a really good connection between the ground and the wiring harness. This is very important. Alright, this is exciting. A little bit nerve-wracking, but very exciting. All our hard work, everything we've done this far is right here. Does it work? We'll try the light bar first. Good. Good. And it also works with the key. So if you hit this button, turns on, hit it again, turns white. If you hit this, it flashes. So that's pretty cool. Now we're gonna do the front lights. Now I want to switch on the rear lights. And then the dash camera, well, we'll have to see that one later tonight. And now this voltmeter and these 2 charge ports, as well as the siren, only work when you have the key in the ignition. So let's go do that. Start the car. Alright, look at that. Good voltage. Our ports are working. Perfect. Everything is working beautifully. You know what that means. Let's screw this down and take her for a ride at night so we can see all the lights working. Holy smokes, I am excited. Alright, so we're at a closed off park with no people around, and the officer is driving so he could test the car out. Remember, this is a trained police officer. We have all the permits to do this, and follow your local laws. Hit him! So here she is, all done. I handed over the cruiser to the officer, and Project Police Interceptor is finally complete. What an amazing feeling it is to be able to do something like this and wire up a police car. The lights speak for themselves, and this car just looks great. Now, I think you know what time it is. It's time to go for a spin. We have a bird up in the air getting some overhead footage. Hit the dash cam. This is the dash cam footage, and everything is working perfectly. Yes! So that is it. Project Police Interceptor is finished. I cannot be more happy with what I was able to rig up for the officer. These lights are set up perfectly, and now when he encounters the accidents he always sees on his way to work, he'll have lights and sirens to keep him and other people safe, and hopefully all this work will save some lives. Remember to let me know what you guys think of this project in the comments, and if you aren't subscribed, consider subscribing. The next project is the drift car, and boy oh boy do I have a surprise for you guys. Stay tuned.